can look out my window and see people in boats and people swimming.
It's a wonderful story, Forrest, and you tell it so well.
Thank you. I won't have this.
And on that note, I want to welcome
that.
everybody to the world according to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. I want to thank everybody that's been in the YouTube chat, that is in the YouTube chat, will be joining us in the YouTube chat. And I want to tell everybody, we are not the ones that are deleting your comments. That is YouTube. So I don't know what is going on with that. But a few of you I've noticed in the past and the other night have had their comments banned for nothing. It has nothing to do with us, and our apologies. And I also want to thank everybody that's been downloading the podcast. We're humbly grateful to all of you. And on that note, I want to welcome everybody to the Saturday night special of the world, according to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. We are joined.
Surgeon.
We are. You just can't ever let me say it. We're joined, of course.
Does he take Medicaid?
I've told you I don't take any insurance. I don't have any patients.
I'm not even at that part yet. Thanks, Remzo. And joining us tonight is host of On the Run with Remzo Martinez. Remzo the Bat Martinez. Welcome back, sir.
The Batman.
How's Milwaukee treating you?
Milwaukee's nice. Good beer, good cheese, good people. Can't complain.
I mean, I guess that's all you could say about Milwaukee. Good beer and cheese. And of course, he's not a simple man, but he runs thesimplelifenow.com. Gary Collins, how are you tonight, sir?
Is he also the Batman?
No, he's the Rush.
Only Remzo can be the Batman.
Only one person can be the Batman, and Gary is the Rush man, member of Rush Army 00346.
Modern day warrior, mean
I'm the naked guy getting
mean ride.
That's
on that note, I think actually Limelight is one of my favorite songs. I think that's one of their most brilliant songs.
I do not know that song at all.
Living in the Limelight, the universal dream for those who wish to. Okay. And of course, this show wouldn't be complete without America's humble servant, writer, actor, provocateur, saint sinner, mathematician, statistician. And of course, America's humble servant,
lawyer, game show host, actor, lover, husband, father, grandfather, incredibly good ping pong player, something you never talk about, devoted son,
and very humble, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. How are you tonight in Idaho?
Exhausted after my last surgery, which was conjoining triplet, separating conjoined octopuses.
Very, very interesting. It's a good fish to catch over there.
And
right off the bat, I didn't want to do something. I sort of wanted the Saturday night special to sort of be sort of chilled, but then I saw the chilling story that Gary and I were discussing before the show. So Tucker Carlson, for the better part of 30 days, has been saying that the government has unmasked him, that the government has been spying on him. And of course, everybody said, no, that's impossible. And it's been revealed, what was it, today and yesterday, that the government has in fact, the NSA has in fact unmasked Tucker Carlson. And CNN, even 4 hours ago, is disputing the story. And Ben Stein, this sounds so familiar to the Donald Trump thing, where they're essentially saying, we weren't exactly spying on Tucker Carlson. We were spying on two people, and Tucker was in the middle and uncovered because we were spying. What the hell is going on? And I mean, with the NSA.
The march towards an Orwellian dictatorship continues apace. The goose-stepping stopped for 4 years under Donald Trump, a man who actually believes in the Constitution. Now it has resumed, now that we have a government that believes in the Orwellian superstate, in which the human being is an absolutely totally unimportant molecule being trod upon by the party. And the party is, in this case, the Democrat Party. And it's very worrisome and sad.
And so I'm going to not go to Remzo first, but I'm going to go to Remzo on something, on a thought that I know Remzo's thinking, that it was Republicans who probably let the NSA get too big. And it was the Republicans who probably let, and he's probably 100% correct, but that was then, and this is now, Ben Stein.
I would like to respectfully go to my friend Remzo the Batman and ask him if he has any data for this, or is this a supposition?
Remzo, by the way, was I far off in what I was speculating?
No, not at all. He spent years discussing this when he was over at Bill Kristol's now deceased Weekly Standard. He was saying this when he was on Firing Line on CNN. He even said this for a while when he was just a regular Fox News contributor jumping at the Daily Beast. Tucker Carlson is now the victim of something he once championed as a way of protecting the United States. He championed the Patriot Act, which is now living onward in something called the USA Freedom Act. He supported I'm sorry, I'm having complete brain meltdown. He supported the FISA courts, which allow secret judges who you'll never know the names of to go ahead and draft warrants to arrest people that are barely even, suspected of a crime. He's the victim of the police state that he championed. So I just find it hilarious. It's like, oh my gosh, the thing we created is being used by the people we don't like. Let's go ahead and get people we do like in there. And then they go do something bad. And then it's like, oh my gosh, the people we don't like are using something that we created. And then it's just a push play syndrome. It's hilarious.
I respectfully restate the question. Do you have any evidence that this, in fact, has grown metastatically under Republicans rather than under Democrats?
Yes. In 2017 and 2018, there were two provisions of the USA Freedom Act regarding warrantless surveillance of the United States, where basically the NSA and other parts of the intelligence community could go to phone companies such as AT&T, Verizon, and instead of saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and just grab the information of one person, we're just going to grab it all and see what we find. It was kind of like a grab and go approach. Donald Trump didn't allow that. In fact, Donald Trump actually tried to triple spending for that. What he also didn't do was he didn't go after the FISA courts, which he complained about towards the latter end of his administration.
When it was revealed.
When it was, we've known about the
FISA but I'm courts. Saying when it was fully revealed. But Ben
but he knew about that going back to the campaign. I mean, he was correct when he said, I think Obama is spying on me. And then he was absolutely correct. The FBI was spying on him. And then as president, when he was looking through it during the Mueller investigation and everything else, trying to counter everything Robert Mueller was doing, he was like, oh my gosh, these FISA court judges were the ones that wrote the warrants to go ahead and spy on my campaign. But what did he do? He didn't do anything. I was really hoping he would at least let us know who killed JFK, but he didn't even release that.
Could I?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, go ahead.
Ben, finish up since you asked the question, then we will go to Gary.
I don't question any of the facts you say. I do question whether or not you have data that shows that this kind of surveillance dramatically increased under Trump, not whether
we weren't saying other Trump.
No, actually, it was Trump. Trump actually did increase it.
That I would actually love to see the data on.
I just told you. You can go. You told me there were Fox News. Sure, I can go ahead and pull you the articles.
Sure. You told me there were more provisions in the law. You did not tell me whether or not there were more instances of surveillance.
And on that note, let's go to Gary. We've waited.
Well, you're never going to know. You got to remember, this is classified material. You're never going to see the actual numbers unless it's leaked. So you have no idea. That's the whole point of the dark cloud of the intel agencies. You're never going to know. That's the beauty of it. They're hidden even from the Freedom of Information Act for the most part. You can put in as many requests as you want. You're not getting shit. But by the way, JFK was killed by the Secret Service agent on the rear of the vehicle by an accidental discharge.
Thank you for sharing that, Gary. But Ben Stein, and what I was actually bringing up was a little different than Remzo, was that I thought he was going to actually say, we did start the Homeland Security Agency. We started certain agencies and we allowed certain agencies. Mike Lee from what was it? Mike Lee from Utah, who has been against it, who's been against the FISA courts for years. Or was he for it? I can't remember. He was against it for years, Ben Stein. We have an animal out there, Ben, that we can't control. It doesn't matter who's running the country, Republicans or Democrats. We have people that are surveilling this country, unmasking people, and it's really frightening, Ben.
Well, if I may respectfully say so, I don't see much evidence of this beast going after Democrats. I see
not at all.
Going after Republicans. I don't see much of it going after Democrats, especially left-leaning Democrats. I just can't believe that if they really worked at unmasking, they couldn't find some pretty interesting conversations involving the squad and people in Cuba and people in Moscow.
No, it's actually a brilliant point you raised, and obviously I can't think of the last person, Ben Stein, that was unmasked on the left. And you also, the point you're bringing up is exceptional. There's no doubt that that the BLM and all these organizations are getting money from somewhere, and rather nefariously, I'm speculating, of course. So you would think that those people that are getting the money, that are in cahoots with those people that are raising the money, would be unmasked a little bit if the unmasking only went both ways, Ben.
Yeah, that to me is extremely scary. And if Remzo is right, and that's an untamed beast, an untamable beast, that's a terrible thing and a very scary thing. But if in fact it's a beast that is only going after conservatives, that's even more scary, because then we really are heading towards a one-party super state dictatorship. And I think we're a considerable distance down the road towards that already.
Gary Collins. So let me ask you.
Calculation though that Trump made was he did not understand or know about the deep state. He was focused.
Didn't understand what? I'm sorry. He didn't understand about.
I don't understand the deep state because he was focused in on politicians and Congress, the Senate, and judiciary. He was looking at that. He was not looking at the deep state, which is deeply entrenched, unelected officials.
I thought he coined the phrase. I thought he coined.
He did, but he had to learn it as he was being investigated. He came in like a bull in a china shop and had no clue how it worked. He didn't understand how Washington, D.C. worked. He thought he paid people money and he got buildings built and got permits. That's what he thought. When he stepped in, he didn't realize that the intel agencies are wicked. You get on the wrong side of the intelligence agencies, you're done. I mean, done. He's lucky he survived. And, you know, I'm telling you, that was his biggest miscalculation.
Well, I mean, Remzo, he
cleaned house.
Sorry, Gary. Remzo, he actually brings up a really good point, because this is the mistake people have made for a long time. Is Donald Trump obviously watched Fox News precipitously? Was that the right word for it? A lot. And constantly he would hear it's just the top. Right. It's just the heads of the FBI. It's not the rank and file. And as we've learned, it's a lot of people over there at these agencies. And to Gary's point, Remzo, what I think he's trying to say, what he is saying is he had no idea what deep shit and state he was getting involved in.
That doesn't justify not doing certain things that you know are obviously right. If you know that this evil institution knows the FISA court is spying on you, and you know it's unconstitutional, and you also have the provision to go ahead and draft executive orders, which he did pretty often in order to stop it, he could have done it. He could have easily done it. I think there's this excuse.
Brilliant super point. That is a really.
I mean, Donald Trump is either one of the smartest people in American public life, or he's one of the dumbest. I mean, people jump for one or the other, but I think he was smarter than people give him credit for. But I think he just lacked action. And I wonder why sometimes, because.
Okay, well, I'll go to Ben with this, because he does raise a really good point. And I could think of a few things he was distracted with for about 4.5 years, Ben Stein.
Yeah, he was distracted all the time. I think for him to lean back and look at the whole landscape and say, gosh, as I look at the whole landscape, there's something fundamentally rotten here. That would have been expecting quite a lot. And if I may say this, the only person who had that kind of scope to his inquiries was Nixon. And it's extremely unfortunate that Mr. Trump didn't try to do that, especially at the very beginning when he had a huge burst of public support filling his sails. Yeah, I think Remzo's point is a very strong one. If we really do have these out of control investigative agencies, it's terrifying. And can I go back even further? Well, you might say, well, of course, we were distracted and we were all terrified because of 9/11, which was terrifying. But even before that, the FBI has been spying on American citizens in ways that are not necessarily connected with espionage or things we think of the FBI as doing.
You mean the FBI was started by J. Edgar Hoover, who started secret files on American citizens from day one. The FBI became the FBI by spying on Americans. People completely ignore that history. The FBI was created and started in spying on Americans from day one. By the
Well,
guy
I
who
mean,
created it.
I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is they were spying on Americans from day one who weren't involved in foreign
Oh yeah,
espionage.
absolutely not. No, it was pure political play. The FBI was a political agency started for politics. That's what it was started for. It was
Well,
started.
Nixon did not use it very effectively.
Well, you're lucky government's fairly incompetent.
Well, you see, but again, to go to your point with Trump and Nixon, they both didn't use it effectively because it wasn't their the FBI weren't in their camp like they are, like they weren't their wingmen. You know, like Holder was Obama's wingman, as he stated, not speculation. Just like the FBI tends to be in the corner of the person they're serving, Ben. You pick two presidents that the FBI was not in their corner.
Yeah, it's a very scary and disappointing situation. And what I wonder is, let's go back even a step before that, Remso the Batman, which is, okay, assuming then that the FBI and NSA and so forth are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, who's calling the shots over there? Or are they calling them individually as a group of empire builders within the bureaucracy?
I mean, everyone constantly talks about term limiting senators, term limiting congressmen. I don't know why we have like 20, 25-year GS-15s still in Washington. I think we need to go ahead and term limit the bureaucrats.
Why don't you explain to people what that is, by the way? Because that sounds like
that's a high-level government employee. That's somebody that has a certain level of clearance and experience, and they're getting paid a very handsome amount of money. But, to his credit, Bill Clinton and I actually have one thing in common. Bill Clinton and I are actually really into the UFO phenomenon. And in 2003, during a conference for one of his books, somebody actually asked him, you've been going around saying you want more documents leaked about UFOs and the Area 51. Why didn't you do more of this when you were president? And Bill Clinton, I think in one of the few moments of honesty he's ever had, said, you don't think I tried? There are people out there that wouldn't let me do that. And then you have the same situation of Harry Reid, another despicable human who I have something in common with. Harry Reid's also into the UFO phenomenon, Area 51. And Harry Reid, when the majority leader of the Senate, one of the most senior senators in the Senate, was there, he was like, why can't I get access to this? There are people around with clearances higher than that of the president of the United States who have been around longer than any lawmaker in DC. And they do a very good job of compartmentalizing that power, compartmentalizing that intelligence. So this idea that, everything runs by election year is not true. We've got the entire bureaucratic state that's running around managing the country, just hoping that the lawmakers don't cut too much of the fat out of their programs that they like.
Well, they're running the black budgets too. These deep state heads, SCS guys, senior executive services, 15s, they create these programs. And a lot of this is dark money. So the president doesn't even know where in the budget this money is. He doesn't even know where it's going. And that's what I mean. When you get into
why do these people? I have a question for you, Gary.
I had a question for you, Ben.
Okay, beg your pardon.
But go for Gary. Go ahead. You ask Gary first.
Well, Gary and Remso and my dear friend Judah, if they're that powerful and that important and that smart, why don't they pay themselves more?
Oh, they do. Oh,
do they?
Do.
Well, I mean, that's a GS-15 is pennies compared with what people on Wall Street get paid.
Well, I think Gary's referring to Blackwater and
there's kickbacks, but there's a little secret in the government that no one knows about. When you get to the 14, 15 level, what happens is I dealt with this because my bosses were famous for this as an investigator. And Remso makes a good point. We had to mandatory retire at 57. For my job, you had to be you couldn't work past 57. But what they do is they bonus each other. There's bonus plans that are built in for 15s and senior executive service. They actually will write themselves, all of them are buddies. They literally put themselves in for awards and they put themselves in for bonuses every year. It's the most asinine, ridiculous thing you've ever seen. And these aren't small bonuses, and they're being paid off. I had a former boss who was getting investigated by Grassley, who owned 2 yachts in the Hamptons. I won't say any more. I got called on it after I left, and I said, I'm not saying shit. But I kid you not, this happens every day. These people make a lot of money. You just don't know about it.
No,
So
I sure
Ben,
don't. I sure
so
don't.
Ben, so what I wanted to say to you is in something that Remzo brought up, and I think it's very important because Remzo, you've written a lot of stuff and you've spoken a lot of word. Just because, Ben Stein, you've written stuff and said stuff at a certain time in life and you've championed certain things, you could later disagree with what you did, with what you said. And Tucker Carlson, whatever he championed or thought about at a certain time and place in history, doesn't deserve the government spying on him. And after 9/11, there was a lot of chaos in this country. That's just a fact. We made a lot of mistakes. Just because we champion some of those mistakes, it doesn't mean we have to champion them today and pay the consequences if we did support it at a certain time, Ben Stein.
Well, I guess I'd like to back up and go further back. I like Tucker, very impressed by him. I've liked him for a long time. I believe you and I have argued quite sharply about this, Judah.
No, I love Tucker.
I'm sorry, I'm confusing you with someone else. I thought you didn't like him. Anyway, and I guess I don't understand what they've unmasked him as being in connection, in contact with certain bad people.
Suppose it.
No.
What else have they done bad to him?
Gary, you go for it.
Okay, I'll explain how this works because it's a little tricky. But what they do is they create a target, a foreign target. Usually they create it. Sometimes it comes across the board. And what they do is when they're gathering these emails, or if they know, like someone goes, hey, Tucker Carlson's trying to interview this foreign associate, so-and-so. So what they'll do is they'll open a case against that foreign associate, knowing that Tucker Carlson is in communication with that individual.
I think we know
and
that.
they do that on purpose. They target that individual to weave around, and then they suck their real target into it. That's how they do it.
But then what do they do to him?
As sneaky gets, it should be highly illegal.
But then what do they do to him? What bad is going to happen
They can
to
get his
Tucker?
financial information. They can get all of his emails. They
So
can get
what?
his texts.
So supposedly they've released his information to journalists, his address.
Everything.
But everyone knew his address anyway.
But again, Ben, it's still a very, I mean,
It's not good. I agree. It's not good. It's
yeah,
not
I mean,
but there must be something.
well, Ben, let me ask you.
more to
Okay,
it
no,
than that.
let me ask you a personal question, Ben. Would you want your phone calls to be taped? Would you want your text messages or emails to be revealed?
Absolutely not.
Well, then there you are. That's
I don't. But I think if I were as famous as Tucker, I would not be surprised if something like that happened to me.
It's
well, I understand that, but at the same time, you were as famous as Tucker at one point, if not more famous than Tucker. And I think we could all agree on that. In 20 years, people will still know who Ben Stein is. Tucker Carlson will have been a blip in the Fox News blip for, you know.
Well, you're very kind of saying
No. And Gary's
I
shaking his head in 100% agreement.
Yeah,
I mean, no offense to Tucker, but Bill O'Reilly in 20 years will be Bill O'Reilly. You'll still have been in some of the most indelible movies and
Ferris Bueller.
and some of the most indelible TV shows and movies of that people have seen. So
God bless you, sir.
that said, Remzo, can you please tell people where they could find us?
Much like that Phil Collins song, do you feel it coming in the air tonight? Well, you
Oh,
should.
I like
It's
that.
I can feel it. It's I can. Oh no,
feel it coming in the air tonight. You can go ahead and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, wherever you go ahead and listen to audio podcasts, including Audible over on Amazon. You can also go ahead and subscribe to the show here on YouTube and hit the bell icon so you never miss a thing. And if you need more Ben Stein in your life, benstein.substack.com. That's benstein.substack.com.
And on that note, welcome back to the world according to Ben Stein. But before I go to the next topic, Ben, you asked an interesting question, and look at Carter Page. So Carter Page and Mike Flynn and General Flynn were both unmasked illegally, and look at all the money they had to spend for 4 years. One of them had to get pardoned. Carter Page had his life ruined. The guy that served his country with nothing but honor was nobody could even with the FISA courts.
Okay, then you've answered my question. I did not assume for a minute that there would be no answer, and you've answered it.
So, but on that note, I want to get to something else that's really frightening, and I don't want to get into the dating app world, but people
we always get into that.
No.
That's kind of interesting because I'm not in the dating app world. Is Remzo, are you?
No, he's not, and neither is Gary. The reason I'm bringing it up is because two people have been unmasked or found out that they were at the January 6th thing from one dating app called Bumble because two women have reported them after they openly admitted Ben Stein on one of these apps and talking in private to a girl, and it just goes to show you nothing is private. Then let me, you've heard the expression honeypot, right? It's basically they trap you with a hot woman, and obviously I'm using this at a lower level. It was a couple schmucks that decided to be jackasses and share that they were at the bragging with bravado, but still
the things men will do to get laid.
Yeah, right. I know that's really, but again, it could have been a conservative. In the dating app world, it's very hard to find a hot conservative. So they're Ben Stein. They could put hot conservative women there as being honeypots and not really be these women to get guys to openly admit stupidity.
So.
You're okay. You're okay with you're okay with this surveillance even on dating apps.
Judah, we only
Judah, if I may respectfully tell you this with the greatest respect, I don't go on dating apps, and I don't, and I assume that people who go on dating apps have great sense of humor and don't mind being teased and made fun of.
No, not at all. But my point being is it's a very frightening thing that two people have been arrested.
Look, everything's frightening these days. Yeah. Everything's frightening. I just watched an episode of Perry Mason last night. My wife's in my favorite activity, watching Perry Mason. And one of the witnesses said he was frightened all the time. And I'm not going to spoil the plot, but the fact he was frightened all the time had a lot to do with how it turned out. There are just a lot of frightening things out there.
Against conservatives. There are a lot
of frightening things out there for everybody, but against conservatives in the political world. Look, the battle's over in the political world. The Bolsheviks have won. We old people, like my wife and I, we just live out our lives looking out at Lake Pend Oreille. And our lives then pass on like sands through the hourglass. You young people have to take up the torch and fight it out in the courts.
And by the way, the statute of limitations is up on the Perry Mason.
It's not a statute.
I know. I knew you were going to say that on Perry Mason episodes. So I think you're allowed to do the reveal. But Gary, it goes to the bigger picture. It's the government, with Facebook ratting on, people ratting on each other. There's a dating spot's not even safe. And I get it. These two guys were idiots. I sent you the piece for sharing what they did, but nonetheless. Is there any such thing as privacy? Obviously not.
Absolutely not. Anyone who thinks they have privacy today is a dummy. I can find out just with public information. I can find pretty much anyone.
Really? You can find out anything? You can find out anything? Can you find out who made a date with me to go to the prom in 1962 and then broke it because her boyfriend did not want, her ex-boyfriend she supposedly had broken up with, but really were secretly getting back together, did not want her going to the prom with a Jew. Who was that?
I could tell you, Gary or Remzo, you give them 2 days and they could figure out pretty much.
Okay.
And they could figure it out through social media by looking at.
I used to do opposition research for this political firm out of Florida. And by just using publicly found information, I was able to find that this Arizona state senator who was running for Congress in 2018, I found out where his kids went to school and what strip clubs he liked to go to.
Well, you won't find that about me because I don't go to strip clubs. It's scary.
I love how Ben only brings up the stuff that you're not going to get that they won't.
But Ben, this sounds like this was a very traumatic incident here. You still
did you fight the guy? Did you fight him?
Yeah.
Did I what?
Did you fight him?
Yeah.
I didn't find out that it was a plot until about 30 years later.
Oh, man.
We should find him.
We should find him. I
know exactly. He's a very famous person.
Okay, so you asked us.
Hey, talk to me and Remzo offline.
But I didn't tell you his name. And can you find him?
Yeah, I could pretty much. It was your junior high?
No, high school.
High school? Well, Montgomery Blair High School.
Yeah.
I would say class of, don't say it, Ben, class of maybe 1960. 1962. Sorry, I was really far off. So I'm guessing you were a senior that year. So Ben's senior year, Montgomery Blair High School. We will be on that and finding the yearbook, Ben Stein, just so we could get retribution for you.
Just with that, Ben, just think what you gave us. So we know it's a female, right? So we know that.
No.
We also know the person.
No, it's a male, Gary. Yeah. It's a male.
He and the girl were in a conspiracy together.
That's what I mean. And we know one of them's very famous. So this should be pretty
not easy. Very famous, not like me, but
well, you're huge, Ben. You're huge. I mean, no one could be.
I think I have an idea who it might be. Sylvester Stallone.
No.
They did go to the same school. But I want to get, this is actually great. Ben's Perry Masoning us to find this out. And
Perry Mason is such a great show.
Well, Raymond Burr was a fantastic actor.
Fantastic.
Yeah, just a fantastic actor, and also in Ironside. Just a phenomenal actor. And I feel terrible for somebody like that had to live the hidden life he lived. Because homosexuality was not accepted at that point, and had
he was gay.
Get out of town, Remzo! Stop it.
Well, you know what's funny, Remzo? A lot of people probably wouldn't know that because
I genuinely didn't know that until now.
Yeah, he was. So was Liberace, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
But
how about Wayne Newton?
Is Wayne Newton
I just found out that Neil Patrick Harris was gay, and I'm like, I remember watching Harold and Kumar go to White.
Are you messing around with us?
Oh my Lord!
You just found out that Doogie was gay?
No, I mean, I remember the day I found out Neil Patrick Harris was gay, and I was like, you're telling me that Neil Patrick Harris, who was doing the crazy shit he did in Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, is gay?
Sorry to ruin your
2006 was a crazy year.
But Ben, I want to get to something next, which is it's not shocking. It's one NFL coach was already fired because he refused to get the vaccine. And now the NFL is telling players if they get COVID and they weren't vaccinated, they will be fined $15,000, as opposed to everybody else that's been vaccinated that's getting COVID.
I don't understand the whole thing, and I especially the sum of 15,000 seems like a joke to these guys. I mean, that's nothing. That's like what a normal person spent on a pack of gum. It's a joke.
Well,
but
again,
but if they have to forfeit a game though because of it, that the people responsible lose that whole game.
That's a good point.
And remember, yeah, right. If they just start with this, Ben, they might take their salary. The NFL Players Union is obviously extremely strong, and I'm surprised they're not fighting against this. But you're talking about if they suspend them for a game, that's a lot of money at that point.
Right. You're right.
You're talking about $400,000 for a game. I want
to go back to something else.
Okay, please.
Show his name for me.
Please.
Is there any end to this creeping, galloping dictatorship that is happening in America right now? Is there any end to it before we become a real, genuine police state like something out of an Orwell novel? Is there any end to it?
I think so.
Okay, Remzo, where is it?
So I just picked up a book called The Fourth Turning. I think it's been out for like 30 years now, but it recently jumped back up on the trending charts on Amazon for books. And it was written by these two sociologists, I think in 1992. And what they did was they looked at the past 300 years of human history. And what they found is that every 5 generations, they tend to repeat the same type of actions as 5 generations prior. So right now, what they think in terms of where we are right now with the millennial generation coming into their late teens, early 30s, and with the Gen Zers growing up with this amount of access to technology, they see that there's going to be a crisis event. Now, for many people, they would think that, you know, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the financial crisis, COVID and everything, we're at the point of the crisis event. But they say that during the next crisis event, you won't see a mass centralization of power as we have recently. You're going to see a mass decentralization of power. So it's not even going to be my generation. My generation will be the ones passing this information on to the next. But what we're seeing is that if you're under 18 right now, you're going to be part of the decentralization movement. Now, what does that decentralization look like? What you're going to see is a mass control of power go into a couple of private organizations that are then going to go ahead and basically compete with the nation state. We see that with Amazon. We see that with Apple. We see that with many organizations. So people are going to identify less with religion. They're going to identify less with the nation state, where, you know, what nationality they are. And they're going to go into subgroups, whether it be political, gender, whatever it is. So I don't think things are going to get bad in the situation that we're going to see a mass centralized authority. I think what's going to happen is that you're going to have giant groups of people that intentionally refuse to coexist with the rest of society. I think a good example of that is the Amish. The Amish have very little to do with society. So imagine many different variations of the Amish living around you, but never living amongst you. So I think we're in that fourth turning phase, as Jason Stapleton also recently mentioned on his show. And, you know, I think things aren't necessarily going to be worse, but I think they're going to be uncomfortably different.
Did that help, Stein? Did that give you any sort of answer?
Well, I was saying about that kind of exposition, Remso. Keep coming back. It works if you work.
What about Gary Collins? What do you have an answer for him?
One word: asteroid strike. Reboot.
That's 2 words. That's 2 words.
Oh, okay, well, you just say asteroid, but no, you ask a great question, Remso. I mean, I don't think anybody sees a way out of this. What you're bringing up right now, because it's the deep state is so deep, we wouldn't even you would need a compass and the biggest, you know, I mean, you would never be able to figure out where is where. Yeah,
you'd have to fire a couple thousand people, honestly.
I am reminded of a line from Tropic Thunder, one of the best movies ever made, that I watched for the 30th, 40th time a few nights ago, and where Nick Nolte says to some British guy, "You're in trouble so deep that right now you wouldn't be able to find your way out if your path were lit by an Ohio hooker with a Dixie coonskin." Nobody knows what it means. Nobody has any idea what it means.
That was such a fantastic movie. No, but you raise a great point. You raise a great question. I think I don't know how we get out of this bureaucratic mess we're in of unelected officials. I've brought it up on the show before. Maybe it is time that we start actually electing the heads of these organizations. I don't know if that would change it at all, but they go unaccounted for. No, it's the president. The president elects the head of the FBI, the head of the CIA. It's a constant mess we're always going to be in. Sadly, even when Trump appointed somebody he liked or thought, they turned out to be complete lunatics. So I don't know.
Who was that? Wait a minute. Who was that?
James Ray, I believe his name is. He's still there, isn't Ray? There.
He's still there.
Yeah. Well, why wouldn't he be, Ben? It's not like he was it was not like he did anything to help Trump out. Why not? Why not keep him? But my point is,
but look, that's what I mean, though. Think of it this way: Ray, right? Complete ass clown. Trump was all behind him. And he didn't fire Mueller right away. He should have fired Mueller immediately. And he bowed down to the
Mueller or Comey?
And Comey.
And Comey, yeah.
And Comey. He should have got rid of him like that. And if he was smart, I guarantee he looks back at it now and goes,
well, he didn't go with his gut. He didn't go with his gut. And he thought, I think Ben Stein,
he should have done what Obama did and just fire everyone and replace it with people he liked.
Yeah, he should. Even then, but a massive mistake he probably made, Ben, with Mueller and Comey, was listening to certain people around him or reading certain things like that. This would happen. Like when you're being impeached, what worse at that point could happen to you? When you're under investigation for 2.5 years, at that what point what do you think you say? You're going to have another investigation? Yes, and they're having another investigation even after he is or whatever, the president of the United States. So it's like, what would have been the worst thing that could happen had he fired this whole thing, Ben Stein? I mean, and what was it with Nixon, the Saturday Night Massacre?
Yeah, he should have fired even more. He should have, but he couldn't have. He's had as Remzo and Gary both so aptly pointed out, we think the president is the boss. There's once it's up to him, there's no questioning him. That's it, garnished, as we Jews say. Not true. There is a powerful network of media people and establishment figures who are even more powerful than the president, and they are hemming in the president and making it impossible for the president to do a thorough reforming of
a Republican president. And somebody brought something up.
The Democrat ones are too stupid and beholden to various ethnic groups to do a thorough job at either.
And somebody brought up something in the chat. It wouldn't have mattered imagery. Really, Trump could have done worse image wise with the media. Would it have?
I bought a gallon of milk the day that Anthony Scaramucci was hired as the White House comms director, and the day he was fired, I still had the milk.
Well, I mean, right in this case,
I don't get that.
It was so quick; it didn't expire. No, but Ben, you raise a point that I don't see. I don't think any of us.
There's no hope. I'm up here in Sandpoint, Idaho, the most wonderful place in the world, except for one community north of here. And I'm not even going to say its name because I don't want anyone going up there and ruining it. Even there, it's being ruined. Even here, it's being ruined by I won't say who, but by people that shouldn't be here. And everything is being ruined. The only safe place is lying in bed with my wife watching Perry Mason and our nighttime nurses.
You lay in bed with them?
No, they can't lie in bed with us.
But you see, I actually do have hope, Ben, and we've discussed this, and you actually wrote about this last week, and I was extremely impressed by that piece you wrote. I was really impressed, and I say this, not to
I appreciate it.
I've got no horse in the butt kissing race. The reason I bring this up is I think I always say the difference between Ben and the other people, and you know this, Gary, and that's why you like being on the show, is because Ben isn't part of the swamp, and Remzo knows the same thing. Ben has changed his opinion from your contemporaries a lot. And when you wrote in that piece about what the hell are Republicans doing, right? And from the Senate, in the Senate especially, and a guy like
mind-boggling.
Right. So you wrote I was really impressed with that piece you wrote. People could find it at spectator.org. And
I think it was suggested to me by you, Judah, to be fair.
Well, thank you, but I take all the credit. No, but you wrote it brilliantly. And the point being, Remzo, Gary, and Ben, is you do have about 8 or 9 senators, and I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone today, Republican senators who have a set of balls. You do. There's some, starting with Rand Paul, you got Hawley, you got Cotton, you got Cruz, you got Kennedy, and obviously there are Chrissy Noem. They have to fight for leadership, and I'm not exactly sure why they aren't being more vocal about getting rid of McConnell, because McConnell at this point is as big as part of the problem as is the problem.
I mean, in McConnell's defense, and this is the only time I'm ever going to defend the human turtle, Like every major Trump victory that came during his administration was because of McConnell using the filibuster and corralling the votes he needed from Joe Manchin and other Democrats to
Yes,
bring it in.
he's exceptional at that. There's no doubt about it. He's
Yeah,
a
I mean,
talent.
he's a horrible person, but he's an amazing politician.
Oh
Those
no,
are
he's
usually
on
synonymous.
but Remzo, on the grand
Yeah.
scale of politicians, Mitch McConnell, especially with the Merrick Garland thing. But as I brought up to somebody on the phone today, Ben, when he didn't get Merrick Garland and he wouldn't approve him, that was sort of like Jeff Sessions, being the first senator that voted for Trump, or that said he would support Trump. It takes a lot of guts. I mean, what's the difference at that point? Either Hillary would have come in and elected Merrick Garland, or you avoided, or you got your own, or a Republican came in and Trump won. But my point being is, Ben, that piece you wrote, why the hell is Mitch McConnell not more vocal? It's
Well, I think you just explained it, sir, which is that if he's going to be a politician and not offend people such that he can then help work with them to try to get things done, he has to keep his mouth shut and be quite discreet about what he does. I mean, he can't speak out boldly. It's just not what people who are politicians and who are trying to corral a consensus to get something done do.
So, Gary, my question to you then being, Rand Paul is extremely vocal. We've seen the brilliant work he's done with Fauci. I wish Rand Paul would have I wish this would have been his job. His job should be prosecutor and not doctor. He's just brilliant at prosecuting Fauci. And like I brought up, you have the other senators who have really strong voices. Why are they not going, just like the left and AOC and these nutbags going after the seasoned politicians? Why are they not trying to vote out Mitch McConnell? Why has that never been brought up?
It's like they can't get rid of Nancy Pelosi. I mean, when you've been in for 4 or 5 decades, you know where all the dead bodies are buried. And if you cross one of those evil pieces of shit, they'll lop off your head.
You can't go against somebody who has that degree of
no way.
I'm so frightened when I hear you say that. That frightens me. I got to be honest with you. When you say that, Remzo, when Ben's saying that, it's a little different than other people.
But it's just the way the world works. I mean, it's just the way the world works.
I do want to go back on one thing, that this idea of Tucker changing his mind and being able to do that. Of course, anybody is able to change their mind over time, regardless of how public they are. But the thing about Tucker specifically, let's run with the assumption that the American people are really that beholden to the media narratives. And then you've got Tucker, who, as Brian Stelter called, the new Alex Jones, the new leader of the right. Let's really look at the new leader of the right. Start at Weekly Standard. Everyone needs to start in DC. But even prior to that, he grew up in Georgetown. He's the heir apparent to the.
I thought he grew up in San Diego.
He lived in San Diego for 7 years.
Tucker was more San Diego, California.
Tucker was there for like 7 years as a kid. Then he moved over to Washington, D.C. He's the heir apparent to the Swanson food empire. Then immediately goes to college, gets a job in journalism, working at the Weekly Standard, where he's a neocon. Then when he leaves that for a little bit and he's trying to figure out what to do, well, suddenly he has some name recognition and the Cato Institute wants to pay him to come do stuff. Then he's a real hardcore libertarian. Then he gets hired by CNN, and that's where the bow tie phase comes in. Then he's a hardcore moderate. Then he goes over to Fox, and now he's a hardcore conservative. I'm not saying we should follow where the money is, but what I am saying is that when he has been called out by Ben Shapiro, by other people in the conservative influence media sphere, usually if you make a giant pivot on certain things like the Iraq war, which to his credit, he said that now if he could go back in time, he would say, what are you doing? When it comes to a lot of things, when it comes to social issues, when it comes to policy, economic policy, when it comes to size and scope of government, when it comes to things like that, he rarely, if ever, when he's changed his position, has given any context. And I don't really think that Tucker Carlson, this is from somebody that worked in the Fox building and also worked with Fox producers in other capacities in my life. I don't think Tucker actually believes in anything. I actually believe that Tucker will say what he knows will bring him ratings.
Again, Remzo, you could be 100% correct, and I disagree with you. And the reason I disagree with you is because after he got fired from what, CNN, or after and he literally worked the worst jobs at Fox News to get where he is today. He worked from the bottom up at Fox News. He was doing Fox and Friends weekends. So
Fox
whatever
and Friends is the bottom up.
I said on Fox and Friends weekends at Fox News. Yeah, that's
to be on TV on the weekends.
What I'm saying is Remzo. He worked his way back up. Yes, he did, Remzo. It takes a lot of egg on your face.
There it is. That's the Tucker. That's the Tucker momentum.
I
Tucker
understand.
Carlson calls himself
Remzo,
the hero of the populist class. He's never swung a hammer. He's never worked a cash register.
You don't like him, but you have to give somebody credit for working their way back up after his career had hit the crapper. And again, just because it doesn't mean you deserve to be surveilled by the United States government.
In his case, it kind of does.
I don't
feel bad. I don't.
Well, that's because you have a hard on for him, and you have to look at yourself for that one.
Well, Remzo
he cultivated the environment in which Republicans allowed this to happen.
Sorry,
and the only reason why he's complaining is because Trump lost. If this had happened to anybody else under the same circumstances, I don't believe any dollar amount could bet on the fact that he would be defending anyone else in his position.
Okay, Ben, what were you going to say?
I think Remzo's right. I don't think Tucker believes in anything but the buck.
Yeah, again, you're completely right.
I hate to say that. I mean, he's a very smart guy, extremely talented, incredibly talented guy. Astoundingly talented guy, really, really, really talented guy. But I think he's following the buck, and who doesn't? And it's a rare person who doesn't. So I don't hold that against him. And I'm afraid this unmasking thing is, if what we're all saying and hearing is now a feature of life. We are going to have to deal with an Orwellian superstate that is going to be bearing down on us for a long time to come, a very long time to come.
Okay, and my point being is, so Gary served this country for over 20 years. He's done, he's changed course. He's spoken, he's spoken out. Does Gary deserve to be unmasked or have
not at all?
Right.
I don't think anyone deserves.
But that's where I'm sort of disagreeing with Remzo on this.
I'm not saying he deserves to be. It's just, I have a very, very, very close friend. Very, very close friend who's extremely ill with a life-ending disease. He doesn't deserve to have it. It's just part of life to have it. This is a person who deserves only to have roses thrown his way. It's just the way life is.
Ben, I got a question for you. When did Republicans become such wimps? When did this happen?
I think it had to do with two things. One, it had to do with the fact that the media just turned out en masse to just smash to pieces Barry Goldwater. And there'd never been such a solid media wall of vengeance against anyone as there was against Barry Goldwater, which got Republicans stay away from being real Republicans. That's one. And two, when they came back after Nixon won the biggest electoral landslide in history and kicked him out within months over something imaginary that never happened. And even now, it's been 50 years and nobody knows what he's supposed to have done. And nobody knows what he's supposed to have done. Incredible. And he was kicked out of office.
So my question is, to further Gary's question, Nixon seemed like a very likable fella.
Very.
He seemed like, a well-studied, humble beginnings. Obviously, right there, he didn't fit in with
the beautiful people.
With football at Notre Dame, right? With Luke
Nixon? No, not even close.
No, he wanted to call plays for Notre Dame.
No. He didn't do anything remotely like that.
No, he did call play. He did call a play though for the Washington Redskins.
It was a bad play.
For a bad play, I think it lost 10 or 15 yards. But no, he raised a great question. I think it has to do with when outsiders started becoming it. When the outsiders like it's actually except with Goldwater and Nixon share two common things, and Trump. They're outsiders.
But a conservative. Goldwater I mean, they just beat him to little atoms of a person. Nixon, likewise. Here's a man who accomplished more for the goal of peace than any other president in the history of the United States, and they beat him into little pieces. Republicans learned a lesson: don't cross the media, or you're in real trouble. And then Trump surprised them, crossed them. They never thought it could happen. They made sure it wouldn't happen again.
I think Trump surprised himself. I don't think
Trump surprised himself. I think you're exactly right.
He got caught with his pants down. He was like, "Holy shit, we're gonna win this thing." I don't even have a staff.
Right.
I just wanted a bigger. I wanted to get some free advertising. This thing went the wrong way.
Yes, exactly.
No, I don't disagree with you. By the way, I've said that countless times. I think, and obviously, I'm a monumentally big fan of his, and I think he did an astonishing job. But you're right. I don't think when he came down that escalator that day, he thought that he was actually going to run for president. But when certain words came out of his mouth, he realized there was no going back from certain things you say. And Donald Trump doesn't go back on what he says and doesn't apologize. And he went forward with it. But I wanted to get into a weird little thing as we're ending the show tonight, some weird science or weird facts. And Ben, I brought up.
Wait a minute. Wasn't that a John Hughes movie?
Yes, an exceptional John Hughes movie with Oingo Boingo in the movie. Brilliant band, brilliant song. Ramza, do you know who Oingo Boingo is?
Weird science. Da, 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 da. I love that movie.
That wasn't the Oingo Boingo song, but
they didn't do the theme song for. They didn't do the theme song for Weird Science.
I don't believe. Maybe you're right. Maybe that was Oingo Boingo.
He's pulling your change.
No, he's not. Somebody could look it up for us. But Ben, so I called you up today because I was in shock because I was reading about Truman today or the other day before the show, and I realized he didn't have a vice president in his first term. And I called you up thinking, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I never even learned about that. And I remember history that I've learned. And most people, I would imagine, didn't know that he didn't have a vice president the first 4 years.
Yeah, because it had not been part of the Constitution to have a replacement president beyond, except for the Speaker of the House, if the president and vice president were knocked out and the vice president was knocked out after he was president. So, yeah, there was that. Then the law was changed so that the president could name a vice president. I believe he had to be confirmed by the Congress, but then that was all cleared up.
So what other things, Gary? I know you had an interesting little tidbit.
Well, yeah, I like I said, most people don't know that at least from a former investigator, I saw this documentary. I talked to the guy who wrote the book on it via email a couple of times. I was trying to get him on my show. It was in the early 90s, but him and another investigator, he was a journalist and then an investigator he teamed up with. They pretty much proved that the Secret Service agent in the tail car accidentally, because it was the first time they had carried an M16 and a fully automatic rifle on a presidential protection detail. All of them got hammered the night before. Trust me, I know this. And he was the new guy. The new guy always drives the limo. I had to do it. It sucks. New guy gets the limo. You got to drive. Well, they were all too hammered. So they gave him the M16. He was on the rear bumper. When they punched it, jacked around, and that was the round. They did all the trajectory. They did all the forensics. That was the head blown out shot. That was the magic bullet that they could never find. And I dug all over this thing. I read all the articles. I watched the documentary twice, and I went, oh, I was like, it was almost like deflating because it wasn't a big conspiracy. It's just like, that totally makes sense.
If that's true, it's incredibly sad. It's unbelievably sad. It really.
Well, I mean, it's also the Occam's razor theory, Ben. I know you don't believe in what the government told us as far as their story goes. So it sort of could be the.
I actually do. I believe in it as far as Lee Harvey Oswald is concerned. There's no question in my mind that he shot him. But
yeah.
Okay,
it was the kill shot.
But with the greatest respect. How Jack Ruby ever fit into it, I never could understand. I still don't understand.
I don't either.
Well, maybe that's the whole thing. He He didn't fit in. Maybe
he just happened to be walking down the hall of the jail carrying a gun.
Yeah, he was a weird guy who wanted a famous moment in history.
And then it just happened to create cancer inside himself that killed him very quickly.
Yeah, just like Jeffrey Epstein was put into a cell with a former murderous. I was kidding, by the way, with a former murderous policeman. He just happened to the guy that looked like he could crack your back, like literally.
Anyone believes that Jeffrey Epstein was not murdered is incredible. It's unbelievable. It's far stranger than believing in UFOs.
Well,
so let me ask you
to Giselle or whatever. What's going on with Quiet? Here's another one.
Oh, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, whatever happened to
Ghislaine?
The Vegas shooter? That one's weird. The Vegas shooter.
Yes.
I agree with you.
I was off the screen immediately.
I agree with him 100%, Ben. The point is, I think the whole central theme to the Vegas thing is there's more cameras in Vegas than at an Nikon factory. And in Vegas, if you do not leave your room for 3 days, they know you haven't left if it says do not disturb on your room for 3 days in Vegas, they are busting in thinking you OD'd from drugs.
Yep.
It's a very strange thing that you could keep an arsenal in your room. One person could keep an arsenal in their room in Vegas. So Ben, anything weird in history that other than that?
To me, is absolutely incredible that no one has ever been able to pin down what it was that Nixon did in Watergate. I mean, I see my very good friends from childhood who was a very close friend, Carl Bernstein, very, very close friend.
Scratch him off the list, by the way.
I had a lot of friends. He and I had a lot of fun together. But the fact that Carl says Nixon was a criminal, even from Carl, I've never been able to see any evidence of it.
What about you, Remzo? I know this. I'll save the craziness for you.
I'm still getting over what Gary said about the JFK assassination. That bugs the hell out of me now. Did you know that Woodrow Wilson was in a coma for 10 months?
Yes, we all knew that.
I saw
that. Was that a thing?
Documentary.
Okay.
Well, there you are, Remzo.
His wife was
after hearing everything about JFK, nothing I said could get above that. I'm sorry.
He was in a semi-coma, and his wife,
a stroke.
Name I think was Eleanor. I'm not sure. I think it was. She was basically running the country and was not considered that nice a person.
Yeah.
Oh, I just found out that John McAfee had 47 children.
Yeah, you mean John McAfee, the computer guy?
Yeah.
I guess he didn't use his own firewall. And on that note, boom. And on that note, as we are closing up shop, Remzo, and I want to thank everybody who's been listening. Remzo, please tell people where they could find everybody.
Everything across Al Gore is amazing internet. Go ahead and check the show notes today for the episode. You can go ahead and find us on the Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play. You know how it works. And if you're listening to this right now, you listen all and watched all the way to the end, share the episode with the friends, email them, tweet them, text them, fire signal them. You know how it works, people. Get it going. benstein.substack.com for Gary Collins. It's simplelifenow.com for one of the best podcasts in the business. And of course, Remzo Martinez, On the Runs with Remzo Martinez. On the run. I'm sorry. On the run with when I drink dairy, it's on the runs.
Me too, Remzo. That's funny.
Me too. It's the lactose intolerant show. On the Runs with Remzo Martinez, sponsored by Lactate Milk. And of course, you can find Ben at spectator.org and his daily diary is there. And of course, also on Parler, at Getter, and sometimes on Newsmax. And Ben Stein, please take us out on this. And we will see you. We will see you Tuesday night. Go for it.
I have spent the entire day in North Idaho on Priest Lake and Lake Ponderay, and this is what I would say. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Avenge me, Wolverines. Have a great night. A great rest of your weekend, everybody.